Did you know that nearly half of all first-time homebuyers are caught off guard by the number of extra costs involved in buying a home? And no, I'm not just talking about your down payment or your closing costs. There are a whole bunch of upfront expenses, surprise fees, and unexpected out-of-pocket costs that can pop up throughout the process. And if you're not prepared, they can seriously throw you off your budget. That's why in this video, I'm breaking it all down for you. We're going to go over the true cost of buying a home, the ones most buyers don't find out about until it's too late. And I'll show you exactly how to plan for each one so you're not left scrambling when those bills start rolling in. So let's get into it. Let's start with one cost that most people are at least somewhat familiar with, the home inspection. The standard home inspection is a crucial step in the home buying process. It gives you a general overview of the home's condition and alerts you to any red flags before you finalize the deal. And yes, it comes with a cost. On average, a home inspection runs between $400 and $600, depending on where you live and the size of the property. But here is where many buyers are caught off guard. Depending on what the inspector finds or the type of property you're buying, you might need multiple specialty inspections, and they can really add up fast. Let me give you a few examples. Pest or termite inspections. In some areas, this is required, especially if the home has signs of wood damage. These inspections can cost anywhere from $75 to $200 and more if treatment is needed. Septic system inspection. If the home has a septic tank, you absolutely want to get this checked out. A failing septic system can cost tens of thousands of dollars to replace, and inspections usually cost $300 to $600 more. Radon testing. This is a big one in parts of the Northeast and the Midwest. Here in Northeast Ohio, radon inspections are pretty typical. Radon is a colorless, odorless gas that can seep into the home through the foundation and is linked to health risks. Testing typically costs around $100, and if radon is detected, you will need to install a mitigation system, which could cost another $1,000 to $2,000 or more. Chimney, roof, electrical, and HVAC inspections. These aren't always included in the standard inspection, and if something looks off, your inspector might recommend bringing in a specialist. Each of these can run a few $100s depending on the complexity of the issue and the professional that you hire. Structural inspection. If your inspector sees potential issues with the foundation, support beams, or overall structural integrity of the home, you'll likely need to bring in a structural engineer. That evaluation can cost anywhere from $300 to $700 or more depending on what is being inspected. And here's the key thing to remember. These are all out-of-pocket costs. You're paying for them as you go, often within days of going under contract. So while it might seem like just one inspection at first, the reality is you could be spending anywhere from a few hundred to a few $1,000 just during this phase of the process. The bottom line, be ready. Set aside a portion of your home buying budget specifically for inspections, because skipping them or trying to cut corners can cost you a whole lot more down the line. Before we move on, if you are finding this video useful or helpful, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel here on YouTube. I do try to post helpful content like this every week. Now let's talk about another cost that catches a lot of buyers off guard. The home appraisal. This one is typically non-negotiable if you are financing your home purchase with a mortgage. Your lender is going to require an appraisal to make sure the property is worth what you agreed to pay for it. It protects them and it protects you too. They want to confirm that the house isn't wildly overpriced compared to similar homes in the area. But here's what surprises most buyers. You pay for the appraisal up front. It's not included in your closing costs. It's due at the time it is ordered, usually just a few days after going under contract. So while you are still processing the excitement of getting your offer accepted, you're already being asked to shell out more money. The typical cost for an appraisal, somewhere between $400 and $700. But that number can go higher based on a few key factors. The size of the property, the location. In high demand markets or more rural areas, you may pay more. And the type of loan you are using. For example, if you are using an FHA or VA loan, the appraisal will likely cost more. Why? Because these types of loans have additional requirements that appraisers need to follow, so the process is more involved and time-consuming. The bottom line, whether it's required or optional, or whether you're financing or paying cash, the home appraisal is one of those quiet expenses that can sneak up pretty fast and hit your wallet before closing day. So add it to your budget and be ready to pay that fee soon after you go under contract. All right, let's talk about the next expense that comes up immediately after your offer is accepted, and that is your earnest money deposit. Now, this isn't a fee that you are losing. It's more like a financial handshake that says, "Hey seller, I'm serious about buying your home." It shows commitment, and in a competitive market, it can make your offer stand out. So how much are we talking here? Well, in most cases, the earnest money deposit is 1 to 3% of the purchase price of the home. But in some areas or on higher priced homes, it might just be a flat amount like $5,000 or $10,000. That money is then held in an escrow account until closing day. And the good news, it's not an extra cost. That deposit gets applied to your down payment or your closing costs when you finalize the purchase. But here's where things can get tricky. A lot of buyers keep their savings in places that aren't easily accessible. Talking about 401ks, investment accounts, money market funds, or even CDs that have early withdrawal penalties. And if your offer is accepted, you'll usually need to hand over that earnest money deposit within a few days, sometimes even within 24 to 72 hours, depending on the wording in the contract. So if your funds are tied up or delayed, it could create serious issues. In some cases, it can even jeopardize your deal. My advice is simple. Make sure your earnest money is in a liquid account ready to move before you start making offers. You don't want to be scrambling to cash out investments or begging your financial institution to rush a transfer while the clock is ticking. It's just one more example of how important it is to be financially prepared before you jump into the home buying process. Now let's talk about something every buyer knows is coming, but very few actually understand until they see the final number. Closing costs. You've probably heard the rule of thumb. Expect to pay somewhere between 2 to 5% of the purchase price in closing costs. But what does that actually mean? What are you really paying for? Let's break it down. Number 1, loan origination fee. This is what your lender charges to process and underwrite your mortgage. It typically runs between 0.5% to 1% of your loan amount. So if you are borrowing $300,000, this fee alone could be anywhere from $1,500 to $3,000. Number 2, title search and title insurance. This is a big one and it's critical. The title search is done to make sure the property has a clean ownership history. No unpaid taxes, no liens, no disputes over who actually owns it. Once that's confirmed, you'll also purchase title insurance to protect both you and your lender in case something was missed. These fees vary by state and title company, but they can easily total $1,000 or more, sometimes quite a bit more, depending on where you are. Number 3, recording fees. These are the fees that your local county charges to officially record the deed in your name. They're not usually huge, somewhere around $75 to $150, but they're still part of that total. Attorney fees. In some states, having a real estate attorney is required for closing. In others, it's optional, but many buyers still choose to hire one for peace of mind. If you go that route, your attorney's fees will be included in your closing costs. That could be anywhere from a few hundred to over $1,000, depending on where you live and how complex the transaction is. Number 5, discount points. These are optional, but worth understanding. Discount points are a one-time upfront fee you can pay at closing to buy down your mortgage interest rate. 1 point typically equals 1% of your loan amount. So again, on a $300,000 loan, 1 point would cost $3,000. If you're planning to stay in the home for a long time, this can save you money in the long run, but it does add to your upfront costs. Number 6, prepaid homeowners insurance and property taxes. Your lender may collect a few months worth of homeowners insurance and taxes upfront to set up your escrow account. That way they know you'll have the funds ready when those bills come due. This can add several $1,000s to your closing total, depending on your location and local tax rates. Number 7, HOA fees, if applicable. If the home you are buying is in a community with a homeowners association, you may be asked to pay a few months of dues in advance. Some HOAs also charge a one-time transfer or initiation fee when a new homeowner moves in. That fee could be a couple $100s or sometimes more. So when you add this all up, on a $300,000 home, your total closing costs could easily land somewhere between $6,000 and $15,000. That's a wide range, I know, but it all depends on your loan type, the property location, the title company, and how much you're able to negotiate. Pro tip, always ask for a loan estimate early in the process. This document breaks down every fee and helps you compare different lenders to see where you might save. And don't be afraid to ask questions, and don't assume those costs are set in stone, because in many cases, they're not. Next up, here's one that most people forget entirely. That's the cost to actually move. Moving is one of those hidden costs that sneaks up right at the end of the process when you're already financially stretched. And even if you plan to DIY the whole thing, it's still not free. You've got expenses like a rental truck, gas, packing supplies, boxes, bubble wrap, tape. It adds up fast. For even a modest self-managed move, you're likely looking at $500 to $1,000. But if you decide to hire professional movers, a local move typically costs between $1,000 and $2,500, depending on the size of your home, how far you are going, and how much stuff you have. And if you're moving long distances across the state or across the country, you could easily be looking at $5,000 or more. And that's not including storage fees. If there's a gap between selling your current home and moving into the new one, a storage space might be necessary. Short-term storage can run you anywhere from $100 to $300 per month, depending on the size of the unit and your location. The bottom line, whether you are moving across town or across the country, make sure to factor moving expenses into your overall budget from the start. Because after paying for inspections, appraisals, and closing costs, the last thing you want is to be surprised by one more big expense when it's finally time to pack and go. All right, let's talk about a bonus expense that most people completely overlook. Even if your inspection goes smoothly and there are no major repairs needed, there's a good chance you'll still want or need to take care of a few things right after you move in. Now, these aren't emergencies, but they're those little must-dos and nice-to-haves that can seriously start to add up if you're not prepared. Let me give you some common examples. New locks or rekeying doors. It's one of the first things that many homeowners do for peace of mind. After all, you don't know how many copies of those keys are floating around out there. This usually costs between $100 and $300 depending on the number of doors and the type of locks that you install. Appliances. If the seller didn't leave their washer, dryer, or fridge, or if the existing ones are outdated or unreliable, you might find yourself needing replacements right away. A new appliance set can run anywhere from $2,000 to $5,000 or more, depending on the brand and the features. Paint, flooring, blinds, curtain rods. You'd be surprised how fast these updates add up. Maybe you want to refresh the wall colors, replace old carpet, or just get some privacy before the neighbors start peeking in. Even small changes like this can easily total several $100s to a few $1,000s. And don't forget the everyday basics. This is the stuff you don't even think about until you need it. Trash cans, shower curtains, bath mats, toilet paper holders, smoke detectors, light bulbs, extension cords, storage bins. You get the idea. None of these things are crazy expensive on their own, but they pile up fast and you'll want to have them ready to go on day one. So here's a tip. Set aside at least $1,500 to $3,000 for immediate post-move-in updates and essentials. Even if you don't spend it all right away, you'll be glad you have it set aside when those little expenses start rolling in. Because let's be real, after the emotional and financial marathon of buying a home, the last thing you want is to feel strapped when it's finally time to settle in. All right, let's do a quick recap of the real costs of buying a home, because there's so much more to it than just your down payment. Here are the big ones you'll want to plan for. Inspections, standard and specialty inspections that help uncover hidden issues before you buy. Appraisal, required by lenders and paid for upfront to confirm the home's value. Earnest money, a good faith deposit that shows a seller you are serious, usually due within days of your offer being accepted. Closing costs, everything from loan origination fees to title insurance and taxes, typically 2 to 5% of the purchase price of the home. Moving expenses. Whether you DIY or hire professionals, moving can cost hundreds or even thousands of dollars. Immediate repairs and updates. New locks, appliances, paint, and even the little things like trash cans and curtain rods. Those costs can add up quickly. Buying a home is exciting, no doubt about it, but it's also one of the biggest financial moves you will ever make. And the more prepared you are, the smoother and less stressful your experience will be. If you found this video helpful, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on more real estate tips and insights like this one. And hey, if you want to protect yourself even further, check out my video about red flags to look out for when buying a home. I've linked it right here on the screen and in the description below. Thanks so much for watching. I'm George Poporad, and I'll see you next time.